Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 30 of Weekend Warriors, the review series for GranTurismo sports cars, both lower end, the more attainable ones, which aren't necessarily extremely powerful, but are more about affordable, attainable fun, all the way up the spectrum to the bigger luxury sports cars and coupes from companies like BMW and Mercedes, and also more hardcore sports cars from companies like TVR. Now, this particular vehicle is one of the former. It's a more attainable, more affordable, less powerful sports car. And this one is actually based, of course, on an existing model. And that model is the 307 hatchback. Now, the car in question is, as you'll have seen from the title, of course, the Peugeot 307cc, or coupe convertible, closed convertible, whatever you want to call it. It's an open-top version of the 307. Now personally, I quite like this car, but not in this form. I really like the WRC Rally version. I love the fact that they tried something different, because usually WRC cars in particular tend to stick very closely to one set format, and that is hatchbacks. It's relatively rare to see a coupe or a sports car of any kind used in the WRC. Now you do see kind of some variation here and there, such as the Mini Countryman, which kind of borderlines a little bit more on the soft roader category rather than just a hatchback. You've also got some of the older Impreza coupe rally cars, but apart from those and a couple of others, it is dominated really by hatchbacks. Now personally, I love the WRC cars that aren't as famous and aren't as popular. Stuff like the Hyundai Accent, which I absolutely love, this car, which in WRC form I also really like, and my personal favourite WRC car of all time would have to be the Skoda Fabia WRC car. I absolutely love that model. I hope that it makes it onto GranTurismo someday, but for now we don't have any Skodas. They're actually a very underappreciated company, I think. Now this particular model in road form is not a popular car on GranTurismo. You don't see many people using it. It's not hard to see why, really. Most of the Peugeots don't get that much use. You get most of the exposure of Peugeot models on GranTurismo, not including the Le Mans cars, in the form of their higher end performance vehicles, such as the 205 T16, the 106 Rally, the 206 RC, those kind of models. And that's not hard to understand, of course. Those are going to be the most popular models, but those aren't necessarily the only good ones. The RCZ, of course, is also popular, but even ones which aren't as obvious, stuff like the normal 206, or the 206cc, or this car, or even the normal 307. They're not bad vehicles. They're not the best in their respective category, but they do offer, in some cases more than others, some very interesting alternative specs to far more obvious options. Now, we've already discussed the 206cc, which is actually a pretty decent little car. It's got great power, a cheap price, and it's extremely light. This model, not so much. Now, it is a full premium, which is an advantage that's not to be overlooked over the 206, but although it does have some decent numbers here and there, it just isn't as impressive as the 206cc is. Now, the price on this model is 43 grand, and that's not a great start, because 43 grand is literally the same price as a Supra. So this car's got a lot to live up to in terms of sheer value for money. What then do you get? Well, you get a 2-litre turbo engine, it's front-wheel drive, and you're looking at 327 horsepower fully tuned, 257 foot-pounds of torque, and unfortunately, not like the 206, the weight isn't that great. Even with the full weight loss package, you're looking at 1,221 kilos, which is probably a lot more than you'd expect it to be, and that's a shame, because the weight in particular could have been a big advantage for this car in a similar way to with the 206. It's probably the best point about that vehicle. Now, the horsepower per tonne does suffer due to the combination of slightly underpower and slightly overweight mechanicals, so 268 horsepower per tonne isn't that great, but at the same time it's not too surprising either. The PP thankfully isn't too high at 478, and if you think about it, it's actually got some pretty decent power and torque for that PP level, mainly due to the fact that the weight is higher to allow that to be the case. But the more important thing to ask, obviously more than the specs, is what can it do with the specs that it's given? Is it actually a good car in a similar way to the 206? Is it that kind of underappreciated sleeper, or is this just one of those models that, kind of like some others, such as the Mercedes A-Class for instance, isn't necessarily bad, it's just not really a car that anyone needs. It's an option if you've already bought other rivals and fancy trying something new, but it's not an essential purchase. Is this like that? Or does it have some kind of trick up its sleeve? Well, no, it doesn't. It is one of those vehicles that you don't need to buy. It's only a car that I would recommend buying if maybe you're a Peugeot fan. There are certainly people who like Peugeots out there. I like some of them, but not necessarily the brand as a whole. And overall, it's definitely not an essential vehicle. It does offer an interesting overall package, and the fact that it is a premium is kind of intriguing. There's no real reason why this deserves to be a premium, especially when other vehicles like the Honda Integra DC2 are still not premium. That doesn't really make much sense. But then again, when has Polyphony's use of premium upgrades ever made any sense? Overall, as I said, it's not a bad car. It's almost like wasted potential in some ways. The weight in particular, I would say, should be lower. Overall, check it out if you fancy trying something different, but as I said, it's not an essential purchase. It's not a bad car, it's just not a great one either. But overall, that's it for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.